Last but not lost, the incredible story of the Christ's last tunic, preserved until this day in France. 1,000 years before Christ, King David writes the verses we know as the Psalm 22, "Pack of villains encircles me. They pierce my hands and my feet. They divide my clothes among them, and cast lots for my garment." 10 centuries later, John described the events that fulfilled the prophecy. When the soldiers had crucified Jesus, they took his garments and divided them into 4 parts, and also his tunic. But the tunic was seamless, woven in one piece from top to bottom. Since over 1,200 years, the tunic that Jesus wore during the Last Supper as well as his Passion is kept in the Saint Denis Basilica in French city of Argenteuil. The relic, considered to be one of the most priceless treasures of Christianity, is publicly displayed once every 50 years, but some exceptional exhibitions are organized on special occasions. Last one took place in April and May 2025, as the tunic was exhibited to pilgrims to celebrate the Jubilee of Hope. For 800 years, the seamless brown robe had stayed in the Middle East until Byzantine Empress Irene offered it to the French King Charlemagne, who entrusted it to an abbé in the northwest of Paris. Dozens scientific analyses were performed to verify if the relic was authentic. None of them found anything that could deny its origin. The exams confirmed that the tunic was woven in a single piece of sheep's wool, using natural dye plants common in northern Palestine in the 1st century. The laboratory identified numerous spots of human blood, particles of skin and hair on the robe. The blood tests revealed that it belonged to a male from the eastern Mediterranean. It was identified as the very rare AB type. The same type was found on 2 other textile Christ's relics, the Shroud of Turin and the Shroud of Oviedo. The pilgrims coming to see the tunic hoped for relief and healing, as it was the case in Jesus' times. A large crowd followed him. A woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and spent all she had, yet she grew worse. She came up behind him and touched his cloak because she thought, "If I just touch his clothes, I will be healed." Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed. About 400,000 worshippers kneeled before the relic and shared the overwhelming sadness as they spotted multiple dark stains on the robe, realizing the amount of blood and suffering that must have been absorbed by this piece of clothing. They got overwhelmed by an act of human courage and divine love performed to rise humankind from its sinful nature. They left uplifted and renewed in their faith as they witnessed an awesome presence and serenity.
It's in the water.